The Kythera training facility sprawled across an artificial moon, its metallic structures gleaming under the light of 3 different suns. For 6 months, Jake and Marcus had endured the aliens' brutal conditioning program alongside thousands of other captured humans. The training was designed to break their spirits and rebuild them as obedient soldiers. It wasn't working. "Another day in paradise," Marcus muttered, as they were herded into the combat simulation chamber. The SEAL had lost 20 pounds of muscle mass due to the alien protein substitutes, but his eyes still burned with defiance. Jake cracked his knuckles, the sound echoing in the metallic corridor. "At least the entertainment is consistent," he replied, nodding toward their Kythera instructor, Combat Master Zeflock. The alien had made the mistake of singling out the 2 humans for extra correction after they'd been caught planning an escape attempt. The simulation chamber activated, projecting a realistic battlefield environment around them. They were supposed to work as a team with 6 other captured soldiers to eliminate simulated void swarm creatures. The exercise was designed to measure their adaptation to alien tactics and weapons. Instead, Jake and Marcus had been using these sessions to study Kythera technology and identify weaknesses in their security systems. "Weapons are charged at 60%, Marcus observed, checking his plasma rifle. "Same as always. They don't trust us with full power." "Smart of them," Jake said, hefting his massive assault cannon. "If they gave us real weapons, this place would be smoking rubble by now." The simulation began, and holographic void swarm creatures materialized around them. The aliens appeared as writhing masses of dark energy with razor-sharp appendages, moving with inhuman speed and coordination. The other human soldiers immediately fell into standard tactical formations, following their Kythera training. Jake and Marcus had other plans. "Remember the thermal exchange patterns we mapped yesterday?" Marcus asked, targeting a cluster of enemies. "The ones near the power coupling stations? Hard to forget." Jake's cannon roared, sending plasma bolts not at the simulated enemies, but at specific points on the chamber walls where they'd identified hidden sensors. Their unorthodox tactics confused the other soldiers and infuriated Combat Master Zeflock, who began barking orders in the harsh Kythera language. But the alien couldn't understand what the 2 humans were really doing. Every exercise, every training session, they were gathering intelligence and testing the limits of their prison. After the simulation ended, they were escorted back to their quarters, a sterile metal cell block housing 50 soldiers per section. The Kythera had tried to break up potential resistance groups by mixing soldiers from different Earth nations and military branches, but they'd underestimated human adaptability. "Zhang's people have confirmed it," whispered Captain Liu Wei, a Chinese Special Forces officer who'd become part of their growing network. "The weapons depot has minimal guards during the 3rd shift. If your plan works, we could arm 200 soldiers before they know what happened." Marcus shook his head. 200 armed soldiers won't be enough to take a ship this size. "We need something bigger." "What about the communication array?" suggested Major Elena Volkov, a Russian pilot who'd been shot down over Ukraine. "If we could send a message to Earth, let them know what's happening." Jake stood up from his bunk, his massive frame casting shadows across the cell. "Earth can't help us. By now, they've probably told everyone we died in training accidents or were transferred to classified units. Our families think we're gone." The truth of that statement hit the group like a physical blow. The Kythera had been thorough in covering their tracks, using their advanced technology to fake deaths and disappearances that would never be questioned. "So what do we do?" asked Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, a U.S. Army Ranger who'd been captured during a mission in South America. "Except that we're stuck here forever?" Marcus and Jake exchanged a look that had been developing over months of shared captivity. Despite their different backgrounds, one a product of Russian military brutality and American special operations, the other a Navy SEAL trained in the finest traditions of covert warfare, they'd found a connection based on their shared refusal to surrender. "We don't escape," Marcus said quietly. "We take over." The audacious statement sent ripples through the gathered soldiers. Take over an alien warship with captured humans using limited weapons and no support? It sounded impossible. "The Kythera made one critical mistake," Jake continued, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd survived impossible odds before. "They think like a military hierarchy. Orders from the top, obedience from the bottom, everything compartmentalized and controlled." "Humans don't work that way," Marcus added. We improvise, we adapt. We find solutions they never considered because their culture doesn't think outside predetermined parameters. Over the following weeks, their network grew. Chinese Special Forces, Russian Spetsnaz, British SS, German KSK, Israeli Sayeret Matkal, American Delta Force. Elite soldiers from every major military power on Earth began working together in ways their governments had never achieved. The key breakthrough came when Dr. Sarah Chen, a military engineer who'd been captured while working on classified weapons systems, managed to reverse engineer a Kythera data tablet. The aliens had underestimated human technical aptitude, assuming that their technology was too advanced for primitive Earth minds to understand. They were wrong. The ship's computer system uses quantum encryption, but it's built on logical patterns, Dr. Chen explained during a clandestine meeting in the recycling facility. If we can access a primary terminal during a shift change, I can create a cascade failure that will shut down their security grid for exactly 7 minutes and 33 seconds. That's not much time, Ilona observed. It's enough, Jake said firmly. 7 minutes to take the bridge, secure the war marshal, and gain control of the ship's systems. What about the other ships in the fleet? Liuwei asked. There are 12 Kythera vessels in this battle group. Even if we take this one, the others will destroy us. Marcus smiled for the first time since his capture. That's where the beautiful part of this plan comes in. We're not just taking one ship, we're turning their own strategy against them. He outlined the plan that he and Jake had been developing. The Kythera had distributed Earth soldiers across their fleet to prevent exactly what the humans were planning. But they'd also created a network of trained, motivated fighters who could communicate using techniques the aliens didn't understand. Every ship has captured humans, Marcus explained. We coordinate simultaneous takeovers across the entire battle group. By the time they realize what's happening, we'll control their entire fleet. And then? Asked Maria Santos. Jake's grin was predatory. Then we go home, in their ships with their weapons, and we make sure they never threaten Earth again. The plan was insane, requiring perfect timing, flawless execution, and more luck than any reasonable person would count on. It meant trusting their lives to soldiers from nations that had been enemies just months before. It meant gambling everything on the hope that human ingenuity could overcome superior alien technology. But as word spread through the captured human population, something remarkable happened. Soldiers who had fought against each other on Earth began working together with a unity that transcended national boundaries. They were no longer Americans or Russians or Chinese. They were humans, and they were going home. The Kythera War Marshal Krextoth noticed the improved cooperation among his human soldiers and was pleased. He reported to the Collective Council that Earth's warriors were adapting well to their new roles and would soon be ready for deployment against the Void Swarm. He had no idea that beneath his feet, 88 million captured humans were about to remind the galaxy why their species had conquered their entire planet before they'd even learned to fly. The massive alien ships appeared without warning over Earth's major cities. They hung in the sky like dark clouds, each one the size of Manhattan, blocking out the sun with their obsidian hulls. The Kythera Collective had arrived, and humanity's worst nightmare was about to begin. General Marcus Chen stood in the Pentagon's war room, watching the feeds from around the globe. Moscow, Beijing, London, New York, all reporting the same thing. The aliens weren't here to negotiate or make first contact. They were here to collect. Sir, we're getting reports from all fronts, Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez called out, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. They're using some kind of energy field to paralyze our forces. Our boys can't even lift their weapons. The Kythera had done their homework. For months they'd been studying human military tactics, learning about Earth's defenses, identifying the strongest and most capable soldiers. They didn't want resources or territory. They wanted warriors. The selection process was brutal and efficient. Blue beams of light descended from the ships, scanning every military base, every battlefield, every training ground. The aliens could somehow measure combat effectiveness, tactical thinking, and survival instincts with their advanced technology. Within hours, they had identified exactly who they wanted. Sergeant First Class Jake Baba Yaga Petrov was in the middle of a training exercise in Alaska when the beam found him. The massive Russian-American had earned his nickname for his uncanny ability to appear anywhere on a battlefield like a ghost, striking fear into enemies who thought they were safe. At 6'6" with arms like tree trunks and a mind sharp as a blade, Jake had survived tours in Afghanistan, Syria, and a dozen classified operations that officially never happened. The blue light hit him while he was teaching survival techniques to a group of Special Forces recruits. One moment he was showing them how to make fire in sub-zero temperatures. The next he felt his body going numb. But unlike the others around him, Jake fought the paralysis with pure willpower, managing to stay conscious even as his muscles locked up. Commander Marcus Ghost Thompson was 3,000 miles away, leading a covert naval operation off the coast of Somalia when the Kythera found him. The Navy SEAL had spent 15 years perfecting the art of invisible warfare, slipping behind enemy lines like smoke and striking before anyone knew he was there. His team had rescued hostages from impossible situations and eliminated high-value targets that governments claimed didn't exist. The alien beam caught Marcus just as he was, preparing to infiltrate a terrorist stronghold. Unlike his paralyzed teammates, something in Marcus's enhanced nervous system, a result of experimental military treatments, allowed him to maintain partial movement. He watched in helpless rage as his men were lifted into the air by the blue light. Across the planet, the same scene played out 88 million times. The Kythera took the best Earth had to offer: elite soldiers, decorated officers, hardened veterans, and promising recruits. They lifted them from their positions with anti-gravity beams, pulling them up into the massive ships through apertures that opened like mechanical mouths. President Helena Morrison stood in the Oval Office, watching her military dissolve before her eyes. "How many?" she asked her chief of staff, though she already knew the answer would be devastating. 88 million, Madam President. Every major military force on Earth has been gutted. They took our Marines, our Rangers, our Special Forces, our pilots, anyone with significant combat training or leadership potential. The aliens were methodical in their cruelty. They left behind just enough personnel to maintain basic order, but took away humanity's ability to resist. The Kythera had studied Earth's military structure perfectly, knowing exactly which people to remove to cripple any future defense efforts. In the transport bay of the primary Kythera vessel, Jake and Marcus found themselves among thousands of confused and angry soldiers from every nation on Earth. The aliens had removed their weapons and equipment, leaving them in their basic uniforms. The bay was vast with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above them. "American?" Marcus asked Jake, noting the mixed uniform elements that suggested multinational training. "Half Russian, half American, all pissed off," Jake replied, his accent carrying hints of both countries. "You military?" "Navy SEAL, Commander Thompson." Marcus studied the massive man beside him. "You're Special Forces too, aren't you? I can tell by the way you move." Before Jake could answer, holographic displays materialized around them, showing the Kythera in their full alien glory. They stood 8 feet tall with elongated skulls and 4 arms, their skin a mottled gray-green that seemed to shift in the light. Their leader, who identified himself as War Marshal Krextoth, began to speak in perfect English. "Humans of Earth, you have been selected for your combat capabilities. Your planet has produced warriors of exceptional quality, and we require these skills for our eternal war against the Void Swarm. You will be trained in advanced combat techniques, equipped with superior weapons, and deployed against an enemy that threatens all sentient life in this galaxy." The War Marshal's voice carried no emotion, no recognition that he had just torn these soldiers away from their families, their homes, their entire world. "Resistance is futile and unnecessary. Your Earth will be protected in exchange for your service. Those who adapt quickly will be rewarded. Those who do not will serve until they learn or until they die." Marcus felt rage building in his chest. "They're using us as cannon fodder," he whispered to Jake. "Not if I have anything to say about it," Jake growled back, his eyes already scanning the bay for weaknesses, exit points, anything that might give them an advantage. The ship lurched as it entered hyperspace, carrying Earth's finest warriors away from their home planet toward a war they never chose to fight. But among the 88 million taken, 2 men had already begun planning their escape and their revenge. Unknown to the Kythera, they had made a critical error. In their analysis of human military effectiveness, they had focused on conventional metrics: marksmanship, tactical knowledge, physical conditioning, and leadership abilities. What they failed to measure was the one thing that made humans truly dangerous: their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Even when facing impossible odds, Baba Yaga and Ghost were about to teach the galaxy exactly what that meant. The breakthrough came from the most unexpected source: the Kithera's own arrogance. Dr. Sarah Chen had been working in the ship's technical maintenance division, an assignment the aliens considered safe because they believed humans couldn't comprehend their advanced systems. For 3 months, she'd been carefully mapping the vessel's quantum communication network while pretending to perform routine diagnostic tasks. "I've found it," she whispered to Marcus during their brief overlap in the corridor outside the medical bay. The Kithera use a subspace relay system to coordinate their fleet movements. Every ship is connected through quantum entanglement protocols. Marcus kept walking, not breaking stride as he processed this information. "Can you access it?" "Better than that. I can hijack it." Sarah's voice was barely audible above the ambient noise of the ship's systems. "But I need a distraction, something big enough to pull their attention away from the communication array for at least 20 minutes. That evening, Jake was in the recreation facility, a sparse room where captured humans were allowed 1 hour of free time per day, when Marcus approached him. The two men had developed a system of communication that looked like casual conversation to their Kithera overseers. "Our tech specialist has a window," Marcus said, pretending to examine the protein dispensing unit. "She needs 20 minutes with no oversight." Jake nodded slowly, understanding immediately. "I can give her 30. Maybe 40 if I really commit to the performance." The next morning, Jake initiated what would later be remembered as the Great Training Revolt. During a standard combat exercise, he deliberately triggered a massive simulation malfunction by overloading 3 plasma weapons simultaneously. The resulting explosion wasn't enough to cause real damage, but it created enough chaos to send every Kithera supervisor into crisis mode. While Combat Master Zeflock was screaming orders and trying to contain what appeared to be a catastrophic equipment failure, Dr. Chen slipped into the communication control center. The alien on duty had been called away to help with the emergency, leaving the quantum relay system unguarded for the first time since their capture. Sarah's fingers flew over the holographic interface, her military engineering background allowing her to decode the alien symbols faster than the Kithera believed possible. She wasn't trying to send a message to Earth that would be detected immediately. Instead, she was doing something far more ambitious. She was reprogramming the entire fleet communication network. Come on," she muttered, sweat beading on her forehead as she worked. The quantum encryption was incredibly complex, but it followed logical patterns. Every security protocol, every communication pathway, every command structure hierarchy was being quietly rewritten with human innovations the Kithera had never encountered. Sarah wasn't just creating backdoors for the upcoming revolt. She was establishing a completely hidden communication network that would allow every human on every ship in the fleet to coordinate their movements without the aliens knowing. The sound of approaching footsteps made her heart race. She had perhaps 30 seconds before the Kithera supervisor returned. With desperate speed, she activated the final protocol and wiped all traces of her presence from the system logs. Human engineer Chen, "Explain your presence here," demanded the returning alien, its forearms crossed in obvious suspicion. Sarah held up a diagnostic tool, her expression perfectly innocent. "Routine maintenance check on the quantum stabilizers as ordered." The explosion in the training facility might have caused resonance fluctuations. The alien studied her for a long moment, then gestured dismissively. "Return to your assigned duties." That night, something remarkable happened. In cell blocks across 12 different ships, captured humans began receiving messages that appeared to be routine system notifications, but contained hidden meaning. Sarah had created a communication protocol based on binary code embedded in the ship's normal operational data streams. "Message received," whispered Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison, a British SAS officer aboard the flagship. "All units confirm receipt and understanding." One by one, responses came back through the hidden network. The Chinese Special Forces on Vessel 7 were ready. The Russian Spetsnaz on Vessel 4 had identified their primary targets. The German KSK operators on Vessel 11 had mapped their ship's critical systems. Marcus felt a chill of excitement as reports flooded in through their invisible network. Every ship in the Kithera fleet now contained a coordinated resistance movement, all operating under a unified command structure that the aliens couldn't detect. "Jake," he said during their next training session, "we're not just planning a prison break anymore. We're planning the largest coordinated military operation in human history." Jake's response was to deliberately miss every target in the shooting exercise, causing Combat Master Zeflock to assign him additional correction training. But as he was escorted to the punishment facility, he was actually smiling. The correction training would give him access to restricted areas of the ship, areas that would be crucial for the upcoming operation. Over the following weeks, the hidden network buzzed with activity. Detailed ship schematics were shared between vessels. Guard rotation schedules were analyzed and weaknesses identified. Critical system vulnerabilities were mapped and cataloged. But most importantly, the captured humans began to understand the true scope of their situation. "The Kythera aren't just fighting the Void Swarm," reported Major Elena Volkov from the Navigation Center, where she'd been assigned to routine maintenance duties. "They're losing. Badly. These 12 ships represent the last functional battle group in their entire military." This revelation changed everything. The humans weren't just prisoners of war. They were the Kythera's last hope for survival. The aliens had literally bet their entire civilization on Earth's military capabilities. Which explains why they've been so careful with us, Marcus realized. They can't afford to lose any significant number of humans. "We're too valuable," Jake cracked his knuckles thoughtfully. "That's their weakness right there. They need us more than we need them." Dr. Chen's voice crackled through the hidden network from her position in the technical bay. "I've discovered something else." The Kythera have been broadcasting propaganda to their home colony ships, claiming that their Earth recruitment mission is proceeding normally. But their real situation is desperate. They have maybe 6 months before the Void Swarm finds and destroys their remaining populations. "So if we take these ships," Marcus said slowly, "we don't just win our freedom. We control their entire military capability. More than that," added Captain Liu Wei from his position in the Tactical Analysis Center, "we control their survival." The implications were staggering. What had started as a plan to escape and return home had evolved into something much larger. The humans weren't just planning to seize control of alien warships. They were about to become the deciding factor in an interstellar war. "Questions," Jake said, his tactical mind cutting through the excitement. "Do we want to help them fight the Void Swarm? Do we want revenge for being kidnapped? Do we want to protect Earth from future threats? Because depending on what we choose, our strategy changes completely." The debate that followed split across 12 ships and involved thousands of the finest military minds Earth had ever produced. Some wanted immediate revenge against the Kythera. Others wanted to focus solely on returning home. A few argued for helping the aliens fight the Void Swarm to protect Earth from an even worse threat. But consensus gradually emerged around a fourth option, one that reflected the combined wisdom of humanity's greatest warriors. "We take the ships," Marcus announced during a fleet-wide communication. "We learn everything we can about this galactic situation. We assess the real threat level to Earth, and then we make our decisions from a position of strength, not as prisoners begging for freedom." Jake's voice joined his across the network. "The Kythera wanted Earth soldiers because we're survivors. Time to show them what that really means." The date was set. In 72 hours during the fleet's scheduled maintenance cycle when security would be at its lowest, 88 million captured humans would simultaneously take control of 12 alien warships. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute refusal to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds. War Marshal Krextoth reviewed the daily reports from his ship commanders, pleased with the humans' continued cooperation. The Earth warriors were adapting well to Kythera discipline and would soon be ready for combat deployment against the Void Swarm. He had no idea that beneath his feet, his prisoners had already declared war on him. The maintenance cycle began at 300 hours ship time, across 12 Kythera vessels. Automated systems powered down to minimal levels while the alien crew conducted routine inspections and repairs. For exactly 4 hours, the ships would be running on backup power with reduced security monitoring. The Kythera had performed this cycle hundreds of times without incident. They had no reason to expect tonight would be different. They were wrong. Jake lay on his bunk in the darkness, counting down the seconds. Around him, 49 other soldiers waited in perfect silence, their breathing controlled and their movements minimal. Each man and woman had been handpicked for their ability to remain calm under pressure. At exactly 347 hours, Dr. Sarah Chen initiated the cascade protocol she'd been building for weeks. To the Kythera monitoring stations, it appeared as a routine diagnostic update. In reality, she was taking control of the ship's internal communication system. "Ghost Leader, this is Overwatch." Her voice whispered through hidden speakers in the cell blocks. "Network is live. All units report status." One by one, responses came back through the quantum communication network. 12 ships, 88 million human soldiers, all waiting for the signal that would change everything. Flagship responding. "Ghost Actual ready," came Marcus's voice from the command vessel where War Marshal Krextoth had his headquarters. Baba Yaga confirming. "Primary strike team in position," Jake responded. His massive frame coiled like a spring in the darkness. Ship after ship checked in. The Chinese units on Vessels 7 and 9. The Russian forces on Vessels 4 and 6. British SAS on Vessel 11. German KOSK on Vessel 3. Israeli Special Forces on Vessel 2. French Foreign Legion on Vessel 8. Australian SAS on Vessel 10. Canadian JTF-2 on Vessel 12. For the first time in human history, elite soldiers from every major military power on Earth were working together in perfect coordination. "All units, this is Ghost Leader," Marcus's voice carried across the hidden network. "Operation Homecoming is go. Execute in 60 seconds. Jake closed his eyes and visualized the ship's layout one more time. He and his team had memorized every corridor, every access point, every security checkpoint. They had identified the precise location of every Kythera guard and the exact timing of their patrol routes. 30 seconds, came Sarah's voice. Jake's team rose from their bunks like shadows. Each soldier moved with the precision of a machine. Their actions rehearsed countless times in whispered conversations and coded gestures during training. Exercises, 10 seconds. Jake's hand found the improvised lockpick he'd crafted from recycled meal trays. His fingers closed around the makeshift weapon, a sharpened piece of metal that would have to serve until they could capture alien. Firearms, execute. The cell door clicked, open under Jake's expert manipulation. Across the ship, identical scenes played out as hundreds of locked doors swung silently open. The humans had spent months studying Kythera security technology, and their crude but effective bypasses worked perfectly. Jake led his team through the darkened corridors, their bare feet making no sound on the metal flooring. They moved like ghosts, avoiding the automated sensors and patrol patterns they'd memorized during their captivity. The first Kythera guard never saw them coming. Jake appeared behind the alien like a nightmare, his massive hands clamping over the creature's breathing apparatus while simultaneously striking nerve clusters that would cause instant paralysis. The guard dropped without making a sound. "First checkpoint secured," he whispered into the hidden communication network. Similar reports flooded in from across the ship. The humans were moving through the vessel like a plague of silence, neutralizing guards and securing key positions faster than the Kythera believed possible. On the flagship, Marcus was leading a different type of operation. Instead of brute force, his team was using surgical precision to infiltrate the command center. Years of covert operations had taught him how to move through heavily secured facilities without triggering alarms. "Security Station Alpha neutralized," reported Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, the communications officer who'd been captured during the initial alien raid. She'd spent months studying the Kythera guard rotation and knew exactly when and where each patrol would be. Marcus reached the bridge access corridor and paused, counting heartbeats. On the other side of that door was War Marshal Krextoth, the alien who had ordered the kidnapping of 88 million humans. The creature who had torn families apart and condemned Earth's finest warriors to slavery. "Command center is in sight," he reported. "Beginning final approach." The bridge security was the most sophisticated on the ship, with multiple redundant systems and a guard detail of 6 Kythera warriors. Under normal circumstances, it would have been impenetrable, but these weren't normal circumstances. "Sarah, I need that security blackout now," Marcus requested. "Initiating quantum cascade in 3, 2, 1, mark." Every security system on the ship went dark for exactly 7 seconds. In that brief window, Marcus and his team slipped through barriers that should have been impossible to breach. They moved like water flowing through cracks, exploiting vulnerabilities that existed for less time than it took to breathe. When the systems came back online, 6 humans were standing in the command center with captured alien weapons trained on a very surprised War Marshal Krextoth. "What is the meaning of this?" the alien demanded, his forearms spreading in what Marcus recognized as a threat display. "The meaning," Marcus replied calmly, "is that your prisoners are now in charge." Across the ship, similar scenes were playing out. Jake's teams had secured the weapons depot, the engineering section, and the navigation center. Other units had taken control of life support, communications, and the ship's massive engines. But the real victory was happening across the entire fleet. "Ghost Leader, this is Flagship Actual," came Captain Liu Wei's voice from the primary command vessel. "Bridge is secure. Alien command staff is neutralized. Spetsnaz leader reporting," called Major Elena Volkov from Vessel 4. "Engineering and weapon systems under human control." One by one, reports flooded in. 12 ships, hundreds of critical systems, thousands of alien crew members, all under human control in less than 30 minutes. The Kythera had never experienced anything like it. Their rigid military hierarchy had no protocols for dealing with a coordinated uprising by supposedly primitive prisoners. Their technology was superior, but their tactical thinking was limited by cultural assumptions about how warfare should be conducted. Humans didn't follow those assumptions. "War Marshal," Marcus said, his weapon steady and his voice carrying the authority of someone who had just conquered an entire battle fleet, "I suggest you order your remaining crew to surrender. This can end peacefully, or we can show you what humans do when we're really angry." Krextoth's elongated skull turned toward the communication panel, his 4 eyes reflecting shock and something that might have been respect. "How?" he asked simply. "You studied our military capabilities." Jake's voice came through the bridge speakers as he joined the communication from the weapons depot. "But you never understood our greatest strength. We don't just follow orders, we think." The War Marshal looked around the bridge at the humans who had appeared from nowhere and taken his ship without firing a shot. Elite soldiers from a dozen different nations working together with a precision that his own military could barely achieve. "Your terms?" Krextoth asked finally. Marcus exchanged glances with his team, then activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice would be heard on every ship, by every human and every alien in the battle group. "Our terms are simple. We want full disclosure about the galactic situation. We want detailed information about the Void Swarm threat. We want technical specifications for all your equipment and weapons, and we want a guarantee that Earth will never be threatened by the Kythera Collective again." "And if I refuse?" Jake's laughter rumbled through the speakers. "Then you get to explain to your collective council why their last battle group was captured by the primitive humans they underestimated." The silence stretched for long moments as the War Marshal processed the complete reversal of his situation. Finally, his shoulders sagged in defeat. "The information you seek will be provided," Krextoth said. "But know this. If you release us, the collective will send everything they have left to destroy your homeworld." "Then it's fortunate," Marcus replied with a cold smile, "that we're not planning to release you. From now on, this fleet operates under human command, and our first mission is going to be a little trip back to Earth." The takeover was complete. 88 million captured humans had just become the crew of 12 advanced alien warships. The balance of power in the local galaxy had shifted in a way no one could have predicted. Earth's soldiers were coming home, and they weren't coming home empty-handed. The interrogation of War Marshal Krextoth took place in the flagship's main conference room, with representatives from each captured vessel participating through quantum communication links. Marcus sat across from the alien commander while Jake stood guard at the door, his massive frame blocking any hope of escape. Dr. Sarah Chen had spent the last 48 hours downloading the entire Kythera database, but much of the information was encrypted or written in conceptual frameworks that human minds struggled to process. They needed someone who could explain the bigger picture. "Start with the Void Swarm," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who now controlled the alien's fate. "What exactly are we dealing with?" Krextoth's forearms remained folded, but his defiant posture was undermined by the fear in his large black eyes. "You cannot comprehend the scope of the threat. The swarm has consumed entire sectors of the galaxy, billions of worlds, trillions of beings all converted into their collective mass. Try us," Jake rumbled from his position by the door, Humans are pretty good at adapting to new concepts. The War Marshal activated a holographic display that filled the room with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones marked swarm-controlled territory, and Marcus felt his blood run cold. Nearly 60% of the galactic spiral was colored in crimson. The Void Swarm is not like any enemy you have encountered, Krextoth continued. They are not a species or a civilization. They are a quantum biological entity that exists partially outside normal space-time. When they consume a world, they don't just kill its inhabitants, they convert the entire planetary mass into more swarm biomass. Captain Liu Wei's voice crackled through the communication system from Vessel 7. How do they move so fast? Our analysis of your star chart shows they've conquered systems that are thousands of light years apart. They fold space around themselves, the alien explained reluctantly. The swarm doesn't travel through normal hyperspace like our ships. They create temporary rifts that allow them to appear anywhere in the galaxy almost instantaneously. Marcus studied the holographic display, his tactical mind processing the implications. That's why you needed Earth soldiers. Your conventional military strategy isn't working against an enemy that can appear anywhere without warning. Precisely. The Kythera Collective has fought the swarm for over 200 years. We have superior technology, better weapons, more advanced ships. But none of that matters when the enemy can bypass all your defenses and strike directly at your core worlds. Jake moved closer to examine the display. So you thought human unpredictability would give you an edge? Human military thinking operates on principles the swarm cannot predict, Krextoth admitted. Where we see impossible situations, you see opportunities. Where we calculate certain defeat, you devise unexpected solutions. Your species' refusal to accept logical conclusions is tactically advantageous. Thanks for the compliment, Marcus said dryly. Now explain why you kidnapped our soldiers instead of asking for an alliance. The War Marshal's expression shifted to what might have been embarrassment. The Collective Council believed that primitive species like humanity could not be trusted with advanced technology. They preferred to conscript your warriors rather than risk creating a potential future threat. Stupid mistake, commented Major Elena Volkov from Vessel 4. You turned potential allies into certain enemies. Indeed. The Council's arrogance has cost us dearly. Krextoth gestured to the holographic map. These 12 ships represent the last intact battle group in the Kythera fleet. Every other vessel has been destroyed or converted by the swarm. Dr. Chen looked up from her analysis station. According to the database I've accessed, the Kythera home colonies are located here. A blue dot appeared on the holographic display, dangerously close to a red zone. They have maybe 6 months before the swarm finds them. Less than that, the War Marshal corrected grimly. Our scouts have detected swarm reconnaissance entities probing the outer defensive perimeter. The evacuation of our core worlds has already begun. Marcus felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. What had started as a rescue mission for captured human soldiers had evolved into something much larger. The information they were receiving painted a picture of galactic warfare on a scale that dwarfed any conflict in human history. Show us Earth's defensive situation, he ordered. Krextoth manipulated the display, zooming in on humanity's home solar system. Your world remains undetected by the swarm, but that protection is temporary. As they consume more systems, their scanning range expands. Conservative estimates suggest they will locate Earth within 10 to 15 years. Unless someone stops them first, Jake observed. No one has successfully stopped a swarm advance, the alien replied. The best we have achieved is temporary delays while populations evacuate to safer sectors. That's because you've been thinking like Kythera, Marcus said, an idea beginning to form in his mind. What if we approach this problem like humans? Over the following days, the captured fleet began an intensive analysis of everything the Kythera knew about the Void Swarm. Human military strategists from every major Earth nation collaborated on a scale that had never been achieved before, sharing knowledge and expertise without the political barriers that had divided them on their homeworld. The picture that emerged was both terrifying and oddly familiar. The swarm operates like a biological virus on a galactic scale, reported Dr. Martinez, a Spanish military scientist who had been working with the alien databases. They locate a suitable host system, establish a beachhead, then rapidly convert all available resources into more swarm biomass. Their tactics are actually quite simple, added Colonel Harrison from the British forces. Overwhelming numbers, rapid expansion, and the ability to appear anywhere without warning. It's effective because most species try to fight them using conventional military doctrine. Jake cracked his knuckles thoughtfully. But humans have dealt with viral outbreaks before. Medical quarantine, targeted elimination of infected areas, disruption of transmission vectors. You're thinking like a doctor instead of a soldier, Marcus realized. Instead of trying to fight the entire swarm, we identify and eliminate their ability to reproduce and spread. The strategy sessions that followed were unlike anything in military history. Generals and special forces operators worked alongside engineers and scientists, combining human creativity with advanced alien technology. The Kythera database provided detailed information about swarm biology and behavior, while human tactical thinking provided entirely new approaches to the problem. According to the technical specifications, each swarm cluster has a quantum consciousness node that coordinates its activities, Sarah reported. The Kythera have never successfully targeted these nodes because they're protected by layers of converted biomass. What if we don't try to fight through the protection? Suggested Captain Liu Wei. What if we use their own quantum folding ability against them? The idea that emerged from that suggestion was audacious even by human standards. Instead of engaging the swarm in conventional battle, they would use modified Kythera quantum drives to create artificial space-time rifts that would trap swarm clusters in isolated pocket dimensions. It's theoretically possible, Dr. Chen confirmed after analyzing the technical requirements. But it would require modifications to the ship's quantum engines that could destroy us if we make any mistakes. When has that ever stopped humans before? Jake asked with a grin. War Marshal Krextoth watched the human strategic planning sessions with growing amazement. In just days, the captured Earth soldiers had developed tactical concepts that the Kythera Collective hadn't considered in 2 centuries of warfare. Their approach was chaotic, illogical, and completely unpredictable. Exactly the kind of thinking that might work against an enemy that had adapted to conventional military strategies. You would actually attempt this plan? He asked Marcus during a brief break in the planning sessions. We're going to do more than attempt it, Marcus replied confidently. We're going to test it against a real swarm cluster, refine our techniques, and then take the fight directly to their core concentration zones. And if you fail? Jake's laugh echoed through the conference room. Then we'll try something else. That's what humans do. We keep adapting until we find a solution that works. The alien stared at the 2 humans who had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. Your species truly is insane. Thank you, Marcus and Jake replied simultaneously. Within a week, the modified human fleet was ready for its first field test. 12 Kythera warships under human command, crewed by Earth's finest warriors and equipped with technology that had been adapted using principles no alien mind had ever considered. The first target was a small swarm cluster that had recently consumed a mining colony in a remote system. According to Kythera intelligence, it contained approximately 50 million converted biomass units, a relatively small force by swarm standards, but more than capable of destroying any conventional fleet. As the ships entered hyperspace toward their target, Marcus felt a mixture of anticipation and determination. They were about to field test humanity's first attempt at galactic-scale warfare. The Void Swarm was about to learn what happened when the Kepler mining colony had once been home to 3 million beings from a dozen different species. Now it was a writhing mass of dark biomatter that pulsed with unnatural energy. The Void Swarm had converted the entire asteroid field into a living weapon, complete with defense networks that defied conventional physics. Target acquired, reported Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison from the sensor station aboard the flagship. Swarm biomass readings are off the charts. I count at least 60 million individual entities, all interconnected through some kind of quantum neural network. Marcus stood in the command center, studying the tactical display while Jake coordinated the fleet's attack formations. Around them, human officers operated alien technology with an expertise that would have impressed their Kythera captors, if those aliens weren't currently locked in detention cells. Remember the plan, Marcus announced on the fleet-wide communication system. We're not here to destroy the entire swarm cluster. We're here to test our new tactics and gather data for the larger campaign. The modified quantum drives hummed with barely contained energy. Dr. Sarah, Chen had worked around the clock to adapt Cathera technology for human tactical concepts, creating weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The risk was enormous. One miscalculation could tear their ships apart at the subatomic level. But risk had never deterred human soldiers. "Swarm entities are beginning to move," called out Captain Liu. "We from Vessel 7. They've detected our approach and are forming defensive clusters." The display showed the enemy response in horrifying detail. Millions of biomechanical creatures, each one larger than a city block, were arranging themselves into patterns that seemed to violate three-dimensional space. The swarm didn't just defend territory, they warped reality around their positions. "Just like we expected," Jake observed calmly. "They're using standard defensive protocols because they don't know what we're planning." "Initiate Phase 1, Marcus ordered. The first part of their strategy was deceptively simple, a conventional attack using standard Cathera tactics. 6 of their ships moved into traditional firing positions and began launching plasma volleys at the swarm perimeter. To any observer, it would look like another failed attempt to break through swarm defenses. The Void Swarm responded predictably, shifting their formations to counter the plasma barrage while preparing counterattack clusters that would overwhelm the attacking ships. It was a pattern they'd used successfully against Cathera forces for 2 centuries, but they'd never faced humans before. "Swarm is fully committed to perimeter defense," reported Major Elena Volkov from the navigation station. "Their quantum consciousness nodes are focusing all processing power on coordinating the counterattack." "Perfect," Marcus said with grim satisfaction. Execute Phase 2. While 6 ships maintained the diversionary attack, the remaining 6 vessels activated their modified quantum drives and began executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Instead of following normal hyperspace vectors, they started folding space around themselves in patterns that created temporary dimensional pockets. Dr. Chen monitored the quantum field generators from her position in the engineering bay. "Energy levels are holding steady. The space-time distortions are forming exactly as calculated." The swarm entities detected the anomalous readings, but couldn't identify the threat. Their collective intelligence was vast, but it was also rigid, designed to counter known tactical patterns, not adapt to completely new forms of warfare. "Phase 3, execute now," Marcus commanded. The 6 ships conducting the dimensional fold maneuver suddenly appeared inside the swarm perimeter, having bypassed all defensive barriers by traveling through pocket dimensions that existed outside normal space. Before the enemy could react, they released specially modified plasma charges directly into the quantum consciousness nodes that coordinated swarm activity. The effect was immediate and devastating. Cut off from their controlling intelligence, individual swarm entities began behaving erratically. Some continued attacking the diversionary force, while others turned on each other in confused aggression. The carefully coordinated defensive formation dissolved into chaos as millions of biomechanical creatures lost their ability to communicate and coordinate. "Direct hits on 3 primary nodes," Jake reported from his tactical station. "Swarm coordination has dropped by 70% across the entire cluster. But the real test was yet to come." "Initiate Phase 4, Marcus ordered. "All ships prepare quantum isolation fields." This was the most dangerous part of their plan. Using principles adapted from Cathera quantum drive technology, the human fleet began creating artificial space-time barriers around the largest swarm concentrations. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy, they were attempting to trap entire sections of the cluster in isolated dimensional bubbles. "Field generators at maximum power," Dr. Chen called out, her voice tense with concentration. "Space-time barriers are forming, but the energy requirements are enormous." The quantum isolation fields shimmered into existence around massive chunks of the swarm cluster, cutting millions of entities off from both their coordination network and their ability to fold space. Trapped in the dimensional bubbles, the swarm biomass continued its aggressive behavior, but could no longer threaten anything outside the containment zones. "It's working," breathed Captain Liu Wei in amazement. "We've effectively removed 60% of the enemy force from the battlefield without destroying a single entity." The remaining swarm creatures, confused and uncoordinated, were easily eliminated by conventional plasma fire from the human fleet. What should have been a battle against impossible Odds had become a systematic dismantling of enemy capabilities using tactics no one had ever attempted before. Final enemy entity neutralized, reported Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez from the weapons control station. The mining colony is secure. Marcus allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before turning to the communications system. All ships begin data collection and analysis. I want complete readings on quantum field stability, energy consumption rates, and swarm adaptation patterns. The victory had taken less than 2 hours, but the implications were staggering. For the first time in galactic history, a force had engaged a void swarm cluster and emerged completely victorious with minimal losses. The human adaptation of Kythera technology had created tactical possibilities that neither species had imagined. Marcus, Jake said quietly, studying the sensor readings from the battle. We just proved that the swarm can be beaten. But look at these energy consumption numbers. Marcus examined the data and felt his elation temper with reality. Their quantum isolation tactics had worked perfectly, but they'd consumed nearly 40% of their ship's power reserves in the process. A larger engagement would drain their entire fleet. We need more ships, he realized. A lot more ships. Or better technology, Dr. Chen suggested, joining them at the command station. The quantum field generators are incredibly inefficient because we're adapting Kythera systems for human tactics. If we could build equipment specifically designed for our strategies, that would require a full industrial base, pointed out Major Volkov. Shipyards, manufacturing facilities, research centers, everything the Kythera lost when the swarm overran their core worlds. Marcus turned to look at the holographic display showing their recent victory. The tactical success was undeniable, but it had also revealed the scale of the challenge they faced. 12 ships, even with revolutionary tactics, wouldn't be enough to stop a galactic-level threat. But humans had always excelled at scaling up successful concepts. Jake, he said thoughtfully, how do you feel about taking a trip back to Earth? I thought we agreed Earth can't help us with this level of technology. Earth can't, Marcus agreed. But Earth plus everything we've learned from the Kythera database, plus captured alien manufacturing equipment, plus human engineering creativity. Jake's grin was predatory. That's a completely different equation. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Asked Dr. Chen. I'm suggesting we go home, Marcus replied. And then we turn our entire planet into a shipyard for building the fleet we need to end this war. The communication system crackled with responses from every ship in their small fleet. Human voices from dozens of nations, all united by a shared understanding of what needed to be done. They had proven the Void Swarm could be defeated. Now they were going to prove that humanity didn't just adapt to challenges, they engineered solutions that changed the rules of the game entirely. War Marshal Krextoth, monitoring the communication from his detention cell, felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: hope. The primitive humans from the small blue planet had just accomplished what the entire Kythera collective had failed to achieve. Perhaps there was a chance to save the galaxy after all. But first, they had to convince Earth's governments to transform their world into a military-industrial complex capable of waging interstellar warfare. For any other species, such a task would be impossible. For humans, it was just another day at the office. The 12 alien warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, their arrival triggering every defense satellite and early warning system on the planet. Within minutes, military commanders from every major nation were staring at sensor readings that should have been impossible. Sir, the ships are broadcasting human identification codes, reported Colonel Jennifer Walsh from NORAD's command center. But those codes belong to soldiers who were declared killed in action over 18 months ago. President Helena Morrison stood in the White House Situation Room, watching the same impossible sensor data. Are we looking at an invasion fleet using our own people as shields? No, Madam President, came a familiar voice over the communication system. You're looking at your missing soldiers coming home. The voice belonged to Commander Marcus Thompson, callsign Ghost, who had officially died in a training accident off the coast of Somalia. Every person in the Situation Room recognized the voice of the Navy SEAL, who had been posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his sacrifice. Commander Thompson, President Morrison said slowly, please explain why you're approaching Earth in what appear to be hostile alien vessels. Because, Madam President, we captured them from the aliens who kidnapped us, and we're here to make sure Earth never faces that kind of threat again. What followed was the most extraordinary briefing in human history. Over the course of 6 hours, representatives from the returned fleet explained everything. The Cathara abduction, their enslavement, the Void Swarm threat, and their successful revolt that had captured an entire alien battle group. You're telling me that 88 million of our soldiers have been fighting an interstellar war for the past year and a half? Asked General Patricia Hayes, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Not just fighting. Jake's voice rumbled through the speakers from the flagship. Winning. We've developed tactics that can defeat an enemy the rest of the galaxy couldn't stop. The evidence was overwhelming. Detailed sensor logs of their battle against the Void Swarm, complete technical specifications of captured Cathara technology, and tactical analyses that demonstrated human strategic superiority in ways no one on Earth had imagined. But the most compelling argument was simple. 88 million people had returned from the dead, bringing with them proof that humanity was not alone in the universe, and that the universe was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. What do you need from us? President Morrison asked finally. Everything, Marcus replied without hesitation. The Void Swarm will find Earth eventually. When they do, 12 ships won't be enough to stop them. We need to turn our entire planet into a military-industrial complex, capable of building the fleet that can end this threat permanently. The scale of what they were proposing was staggering, converting Earth's economy to support interstellar warfare, building shipyards in space, training millions of new soldiers to crew vessels that operated on principles barely understood by human science. The technical challenges alone would take decades to solve, protested Dr. Elizabeth Carter, director of NASA. We don't have the industrial base or the knowledge to build ships like yours. We do now. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation. I've downloaded the complete Cathara technical database. Manufacturing processes, engineering specifications, quantum drive principles. Everything we need to build better ships than the aliens ever imagined. And we've got something that Cathara never had. Jake added, human creativity applied to advanced technology. We're not just copying their designs, we're improving them. The debates that followed split across every level of government and military command. Some leaders wanted to hide Earth's existence and hoped the Void Swarm never found them. Others argued for diplomatic contact with surviving alien civilizations. A few suggested simply evacuating Earth and fleeing to distant star systems. But gradually, consensus emerged around the audacious plan proposed by the returned soldiers. Ladies and gentlemen, President Morrison announced during a joint session of Congress 6 weeks later, we are going to build the fleet that saves the galaxy. The transformation that followed was unlike anything in human history. Every major corporation retooled their facilities for spacecraft construction. Universities launched crash programs in quantum engineering and xenobiology. Military academies began training officers for three-dimensional space combat. The Cathara prisoners, led by War Marshal Krextoth, found themselves in the unusual position of being technical consultants for their former enemies. Human engineers would present them with modified designs that improved on alien technology, in ways the Cathara had never considered. This quantum drive configuration should increase efficiency by 30%, Dr. Chen explained to a group of alien technicians. The power routing follows principles we discovered while studying your original designs. Krextoth examined the specifications with all 4 of his eyes. This is impossible. The quantum field interactions you've described would create cascade failures in our original technology. That's because your technology was designed by Cathara engineers, Chen replied with a smile. This was designed by humans who don't accept that things are impossible until we prove they're impossible. Within a year, Earth's orbital shipyards were launching vessels that incorporated the best of human innovation with advanced alien technology. The new ships were faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than anything the Cathara had ever built. But more importantly, they were designed specifically for the tactical doctrines that had proven successful against the Void Swarm. Fleet deployment is ahead of schedule, reported Admiral Sarah Rodriguez, who had been promoted to overall command of Earth's new space navy. We'll have 200 ships operational within 6 months, with production ramping up to 50 new vessels per month. Marcus and Jake stood on the observation deck of the orbital command station, watching humanity's first interstellar warships take shape in the construction bays below them. Earth had transformed from a single planet species to the foundation of an interstellar military power in less than 2 years. "Think it'll be enough?" Jake asked, cracking his knuckles as he studied the tactical projections. "It'll have to be," Marcus replied. "Our scout ships report that the swarm has detected our activities. They're redirecting major force concentrations toward this sector. How long do we have? Maybe 2 years before they arrive in force? 3 if we're lucky." Jake's grin was fierce. "Then we'd better make sure we're ready for them." The final phase of humanity's preparation involved something no other species had attempted: a preemptive strike against the Void Swarm's core territories. Instead of waiting for the enemy to come to them, Earth's new fleet would carry the war directly to the heart of swarm-controlled space. "It's insane," War Marshal Krextoth observed during a strategic planning session. "No species has ever successfully attacked swarm core territories and survived. That's because no species has ever had 88 million soldiers who were personally wronged by the galaxy's power structures," Marcus replied. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting to make sure this kind of threat never emerges again." The fleet that assembled for humanity's first major interstellar campaign was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 500 ships crewed by Earth's finest warriors, equipped with technology that blended human creativity with alien science, and commanded by officers who had already proven they could defeat impossible odds. As the massive fleet prepared to enter hyperspace for their journey to the galactic core, Jake stood beside Marcus on the flagship's bridge. Around them, human voices coordinated the complex ballet of an interstellar military operation. "Ready for departure," announced Admiral Rodriguez from her command station. "All ships report green status." Marcus activated the fleet communication system, his voice carrying to 500,000 human soldiers across 500 vessels. "Ladies and gentlemen, 18 months ago we were kidnapped from our homeworld and forced to serve an alien empire. Today we're taking the fight to the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. Let's show the universe what happens when humans decide to solve a problem." Jake's voice joined his on the open channel. "All units, remember, we're not just soldiers anymore. We're the tip of the spear for an entire planet that refused to accept defeat. Let's go win a war." The fleet entered hyperspace as one, carrying Earth's message to the stars. Humanity was no longer a single planet species hiding in an isolated star system. They were a galactic power, and they were coming to end the Void Swarm's reign of terror once and for all. Behind them, Earth continued its transformation into a military-industrial fortress, building more ships and training more crews for the long campaign ahead. The blue planet that had once seemed so isolated and vulnerable had become the center of the galaxy's greatest hope for survival. The Void Swarm had made a critical error when they threatened human space. They had awakened a species that didn't just adapt to challenges. They turned challenges into opportunities to reshape the entire battlefield. Now they were about to learn what that really meant.